Welcome to episode 116. I'm Stuart McCullough, I'm the CEO of VHIA. And starting with this week's Industrial Roundup. For this week's Industrial Roundup, we have a meeting with DHHS and Industrial Relations Victoria on Monday to discuss the log of claims for nurses and midwives. This follows the finalisation of the log of claims for employers, which was submitted to the department last Friday. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of those members who contributed and provided feedback during the consultation process with respect to that log of claims. The next logs of claim that are due to be prepared are for allied health professionals and for mental health. Those are due to be submitted on the 30th of September. We'll be in touch with members with respect to that and the consultation process supporting the development of those logs of claims shortly. On Tuesday, we'll be returning to the Fair Work Commission before Commissioner Gregory to continue our discussions with respect to the development of saving schedules for medical specialists. Thanks to those members who have been providing feedback for the development of those schedules so far. On Wednesday, we have an SDPPWG meeting with the medical scientists. And for our community health members, the last of the dental agreements is now proceeding to ballot. And that marks the official end of the negotiation process for all the agreements for community health. Of course, new negotiations are due to commence for the next round of bargaining in the next couple of months. In terms of community health members, we'll be in touch shortly with respect to the development of a community health specific log of claims for the upcoming nurses and midwives negotiations. As always, all of our activities are summarised through the VHIA Yammer network. If you've not yet accepted your invitation, I'd encourage you to do so to ensure that you have access to all the meeting by meeting updates that we'll be providing during the bargaining process. And that's it for this week's Industrial Roundup. It's now time for the weekly update.
Hi, my name is Jim Babalis, Workplace Relations Legal Officer here at the VHIA. And here today with me I have James Farrugia, Workplace Relations Advisor. Hi James.
Thanks Jim, pleasure to be here.
Now James, when we usually start these podcasts, we always have a clue to introduce our topic. So, do you want to have a bit of a go there?
Okay, I'll give it a crack. Oh, it's quite heavy. Ooh.
Would you care to try to guess it?
I've never seen this before. It looks a bit like a recorder.
Let's just see. It's a Commodore 64 recorder, which, aside from meaning ancient, probably is dealing with some part of the theme that we're dealing with today, ancient and confusing. And
Yeah, ancient, confusing,
any
ambiguous. Oh, that has to be mental health.
definitely right.
Oh.
Definitely right. So
Got that
well
right.
done. I mean, it's definitely something for the ages, I guess. So it's time to dust it off and start thinking about it again.
All right, Jim. The mental health EBA. Where do we start?
Well, great question, James. And I think that's probably part of the problem here. I guess one of the complexities about this agreement really is that it's not only the size of the actual agreement itself. I mean, that definitely is part of a little bit of the problem, that it is very large and broad, but it is also the crossover that exists with this agreement in relation to specific other agreements as well, as in terms of being an amalgam. For example, I guess the specific EBA has historically and at present covered 4 lists of employees, and they are, I guess, number 1, registered psychiatric nurses, psychiatric enrolled nurses, and psychiatric service officers. 2 is the health professionals, 3 is the health and allied services employees, and 4 is management and administrative officers. So try and, I guess, bring those 4 groupings of employees together isn't necessarily an easy task for any EBA on their own, particularly for mental health, which has to cover all 4.
That would make stakeholder consultation quite difficult, wouldn't it?
Listen, it is difficult. I mean, there are a number of also complexities that arise. I guess aside from the DHHS, of course, and the respective health services that we have to deal with as members, and obviously their input, which is really important, it also means that we have to deal and engage with the respective unions, and in this particular case, it's HACSA and the ANMF. And that engagement, whilst in most cases very constructive, those unions are coming across, I guess, from very, very different standpoints, specifically when you're dealing with this EBA.
Yeah. In relation to the current EBA, the 2016 to 2020 EBA, from your experience, what have been some of the main challenges that VHIA have experienced?
Yeah, listen, there are a couple that do spring to mind. I mean, part of it is, I guess, the general implementation issues that come up with this EBA that the Mental Health Industry Implementation Committee does deal with. That is a little bit of a problem because being such a broad EBA, you have to deal with issues such as, what divisions are covered under acute inpatient units or not. That's always a bit of a tricky task. Something obviously we've discussed recently around substituted leave. That definitely needs some refreshing, that clause there. So there are a number of clauses that I think have a degree of complexity and ambiguity. But I think one of the main implementation issues that has caused, I guess, some degree of ambiguity in its own right has definitely been the community workplace management system tool and process. And as you may know, and a lot of our members do know, there's been a couple of community practice forums that have tried to alleviate some of the concerns around that. That's found in clause 49 of the EBA, and that's just, I guess, been complex from essentially from get-go, really.
Could you elaborate on that CWMS point?
Yeah, essentially, I guess, the CWMS is a tool. And I guess, listen, if we break it down, it's a tool that's designed to capture the percentage of clinical and organisational time that is worked or meant to be worked by community clinicians. The split as it currently stands in the agreement is a 60-40 split in favour of clinical commitment. There regretfully though is no indication of what the leeway is at all when that process is not met. Essentially, if you're not meeting that exact mathematical percentage split, you're not complying with the agreement. And that causes a lot of problems for many professionals in this space. And obviously, I guess, for our direct member response group, the EIR directors meetings, and the local WICs as well, because they might be accused of not being compliant. I guess, unfortunately, the feedback so far has been that there's been a lot of issues with this, as this model can't be really implemented as it currently stands across the applicable mental health teams. And the fixed percentages really are sometimes not an accurate reflection of the work being undertaken. I mean, to give you an example, CAT triage teams, the CAT phone services, I mean, they just will not be meeting that 60-40 split. And it's whether an issue, whether those teams should be captured by this particular clause, or whether we get into the next round of bargaining and we need to actually start looking at specific examples where we begin to, I guess, draw some leeway in relation to that.
Yeah. So what would be some of your recommendations regarding that?
Listen, I guess there's, that's another great question there, putting me on the spot here, of course. It's probably 3 points. I guess for our member service, in the short term, implement the clause per the actual DHS project review, which is being undertaken. I mean, implementation is absolutely key. If the clause from our member services, the preponderance of the opinion is that it is quite unworkable, our recommendation is still implement. In the medium term, which is the second point, the issues that our member services might actually have with this particular clause, or training, or feedback in relation to this through the department liaison or the community workplace forums, is please do raise these issues locally with the WICs or the implementation committees, and I think really specifically through training, because that way it does filter back to us here at the VHIA. In the long term, and this is the third, and I think the most critical point now that we're coming up to, that we're in the final stages of the review of this agreement, and we'll be heading off to our log of claims in about 2.5 months' time, and then bargaining after that, is that in the long term, this is a review item for the next round of bargaining. Here at the VHA, aim to address this with the unions to make this more tenable. Now, that will be a bit of a work in progress, and it will be challenging, but we couldn't obviously be criticised for not attempting to review this and fix this up a little bit better moving forward.
One of the key themes that we keep hearing about with respect to EBAs is modernisation. Do you think this will apply to the mental health agreement, and if so, where?
Yeah, listen, I guess as the clue pinpointed, this is specifically, I guess, an older agreement, and it's an older amalgam agreement, which makes it really difficult sometimes to try to draw some analogies with current standards. It's interesting though that you asked that, because not only does clause 14 of the actual agreement itself provide some guidance, but it captures this issue of modernisation, which is a key theme of our review. The current review here that we're taking here at the VHA, and have been taking for some months now, is trying to capture essentially, I guess, where this agreement is not contemporary. Clause 14 is very specific insofar as it wants to remove, from what we're understanding, redundant terminology, and we are heavily consulting with the unions on this, and this is a key component of our review here. We've shared our review tracker with our members. We're updating this quite regularly. The review tracker really has as its primary objective not only the refreshing and removal and adding of, I guess, clauses which don't seem to work anymore, but also it's trying to address obviously terms that just have no longer any relevance that shouldn't be in the agreement. So aside from being a key theme of our review, this is really what we want to do.
Yeah.
And if I could indulge a little bit on that point, for instance, clauses 25, 44 through to 46 of the agreement, which deal with issues such as return of property and other aspects like, satellite usage and four-wheel drives. I mean, we really have to be quite honest. What role do they have in the agreement now? I mean, listen, maybe a decade ago, or even at the last round, there was still some propensity to argue, there's some scope here. But I think at this current review item, we're safe to say that we need to look at how the workforce is being modernised.
Yeah.
Other clauses that we obviously need to look around is issues around specifically around OH&S violence and anti-discrimination, and that these may need to be updated to reflect, I guess, key legislative requirements and amendments that have taken place over the last few years, as well as contemporary themes, I guess, in the broader public and definitely in the broader health sector right now. So I think that's critical for us here.
Yeah. So it seems the review tracker is not only a means of capturing these issues, but somehow engaging with members as well.
James, absolutely. I guess it's essential that our philosophy here is that, and the philosophy that we're operating with, and I think what our members are also doing is that what they think is necessary and what we think is necessary is documented. And this is done not only for the purpose of I guess, the next round of bargaining, which really won't be is not that far off now, and obviously the log of claims isn't that far off now, but also for when we're discussing the implementation issues with this agreement, which is a little bit problematic with this agreement here, and also to ensure that the real industry issues that we are picking up with our members, that these are addressed as well, and that's the whole purpose of the review tracker.
Yeah, we've read and heard a lot about the Royal Commission in recent months, and particularly with the focus into mental health. Do you think this might impact the next round of bargaining for this agreement? How so?
Listen, of course, and I think it's probably going to be a little bit broader than that to an extent. I mean, The Royal Commission, which has bipartisan support, will almost certainly make findings and inroads, not in relation to I guess the more broader themes around mental health, but also in relation to care, mental health facilities across the services. But I think we're probably going to see the greatest traction, aside from, I guess, those themes, the contemporary themes, particularly around, I guess, the operational issues of funding and staffing, which are absolutely, critical. I think this will trickle down into the EBA, specifically around when we move beyond the review and implementation issues of this current agreement into the next round of bargaining. I think it's going to be absolutely key, because those themes, whilst the Royal Commission is current and present, the findings, could be, I think the first draft is probably going to be, in maybe 6 to 9 months' time, and the findings going to be about a year off. But I think they're going to absolutely be critical for this EBA.
Yeah. Jim, it sounds like you and Rem Richards have a lot of work to do. Any last comments?
Listen, I think watch this space. We sure do have a lot of work to do, and and it's kept us occupied now for some months. I'd say, obviously, just to repeat, watch this space. The Royal Commission is going to be absolutely critical. I think what will also be quite interesting is, I guess, the secondary pathway in relation to whether this agreement, which has been somewhat flagged for rollover for 12 months, whether that actually takes place. And that is going to be, some strong discussions are going to take place there between the VHIA, the unions, and the department over the next few months, and that's definitely going to be challenging and interesting at the same time. But I think if I could probably leave everyone with some final thoughts, the mental health EBA, listen, there's no easy way to say this. It's not easy, and it's laborious. And I guess the key issues of implementation, particularly around CWMS and the MIC, the Mental Health Industry Implementation Committee meetings, are essentially that. They are, not easy and laborious. But they also allow us to gauge, I guess, with some of the key themes and implementation issues facing our members, and also some of the issues that our partners in the unions are bringing up as well. And it gives us a real chance to identify them, work with them, resolve them, move on. So I think if I was to leave everyone with a key theme is, that's work to capture as much as the problems that might exist with this EBA to make it workable into the future.
Yeah, awesome.
James, fantastic. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
VHIA